When I woke up, there was suddenly an extremely high-maintenance toddler lying beside me. If I didn't kiss him fast enough, he cried. If I came home and hugged the dog before hugging him, he cried. After some investigating, I discovered that apparently, he was a cancer. That explained a lot. I stared at Momo, who had somehow inherited my eyes and eyebrows almost perfectly, wondering who on earth I was supposed to find to help take care of him. What I didn't expect was for my lifelong nemesis to show up at my door the very next day with red-rimmed eyes. His voice caught as he spoke, and the wounded expression on his face looked almost exactly like Momo's. When I woke up this morning, the clock said 3:33. My phone battery was at 33%. And today is Wednesday. I stared at him. He swallowed. What I'm saying is, the universe is clearly obsessed with the number 3. So I don't mind being the third person in this relationship. Could you maybe consider me first? Later, Louis Brown's favorite pastime became hovering around Momo and asking with a shy, expectant expression, "Sweetheart, can you tell me one more time how your mommy chose daddy out of millions and millions of men?" Welcome to Hehestory channel. Subscribe to follow all our latest adventures. Story begins. I crouched in front of Momo and patiently asked him again, "Sweetie, do you remember what your mom and dad are called?" Momo was frowning with his tiny brows knitted together. He stretched out his chubby little hand, stubbornly insisting on interlocking all his fingers with mine. The moment he heard my question, his mouth turned down. "Mommy, I'm Momo. Don't you know Momo anymore?" Within seconds, his huge eyes filled with tears. The tip of his nose turned pink. He looked so wrong that my heart almost gave out. He looked like me. Way too much like me. It was basically like staring into a tiny mirror. But no matter how much he resembled me, there was absolutely no way I could have somehow given birth to a child this big without knowing it. My temple throbbed. Almost on instinct, I pulled Momo into my arms. My brain still hadn't caught up, but my mouth was already soothing him automatically. Of course Mommy knows Momo. Mommy was only joking just now. It was Mommy's fault. Yeah. No wonder I was so good at this. This was already the third time he had cried today. When we woke up that morning, I hadn't immediately given him a good morning kiss. He had cried like the entire world had collapsed. Later, when he needed to poop, I instinctively tried to give him some privacy. His emotional forecast immediately went from cloudy to catastrophic thunderstorm. He cried until his little voice went hoarse, accusing me of not holding his hand because I didn't love him anymore. I had no choice but to search online. Apparently, water sign kids could be like this. Kids born under the more livestock-adjacent signs? Much sturdier, according to the internet. Fortunately, even though Momo cried easily, he was also easy to comfort. He sniffled, his voice still thick from crying. "Then Mommy has to pinky promise." I hooked my pinky around his tiny one. My heart instantly melted. Then Momo's stomach growled loudly. After asking him what foods he didn't like, I went into the kitchen and made him a bowl of noodles. My phone was sitting on the living room table. Several messages from Louis Brown popped up. "Are you coming to the get-together tonight?" Just asking, by the way. Don't read into it. A few minutes later. LMAO. Fine, don't come. You're so dramatic. Are you avoiding me on purpose? You hate me that much. You don't seriously think I care, do you? Hilarious. Kiki Brown's been crying like an idiot. Are you seriously going to ignore her too? Momo couldn't read that many words. He picked up my phone and accidentally tapped the screen, sending Louis a single period. Louis exploded instantly. It was almost as if he had been sitting there staring at our chat the entire time. What does the period mean? Does that mean yes? Do you want me to pick you up? Not that I really want to come get you or anything. I'd just be passing by. It's your fault you took so long to answer. Now I can't even turn Kiki down. Why aren't you answering again? Do you think I'm begging you to talk to me? Stella Campbell, you have officially pissed me off. After waiting forever without another response, Louis apparently lost his mind. He started a video call. What he hadn't expected was for someone to answer within 1 second. Louis panicked so badly that he slammed his phone face down onto the bed, practically launched himself out of it, and sprinted into the bathroom. Within seconds, he had run some water through his hair. Then he tugged his robe a little looser, exposing just enough collarbone and chest to look accidental. Only then did he pick up the phone again, putting on an expression that suggested he had just lazily woken up. He had probably even been preparing to show off that naturally deep, raspy morning voice of his. Instead, he found himself staring directly at Momo's round little face. Momo frowned like a tiny adult and spoke with absolute seriousness. "Dad." He paused. "No. Sorry, Uncle, for now. Mommy is spending today with Momo. Be good and don't interrupt our private mommy and son time." Then he hung up neatly. Louis Brown remained frozen in shock. He didn't come back to his senses until his phone slipped from his hand and smacked him in the face. Since when did Stella Campbell have a son that big? Momo held his bowl and ate adorably. They were just ordinary noodles with vegetables and egg, but somehow, the way he ate made them look like the best food in the world. Once he was full, I rubbed his round little belly and tried to get more information out of him. The DNA test would still take some time. But something in my gut told me that Momo really was my child. I checked the indoor security footage. Apparently, sometime in the middle of the night, Momo had simply appeared out of nowhere on my bed. An absurd thought flashed through my head. Could Momo have traveled here from the future? Apparently, yes. Mommy had me when she was 27. I asked for his full name. Momo stood up on the bed, planted his little hands on his hips, and proudly lifted his chin. "My name is Morris Campbell. My mommy is Stella Campbell." It took me exactly 0 seconds to calmly accept the fact that Momo had my last name. I rubbed his soft cheek. "Then what's Momo's daddy's name?" His long lashes were still damp. His little face scrunched up. Then, as though he had made an extremely important decision, he answered solemnly. "Whoever mommy loves is my daddy." What a filial child. Truly. I immediately understood. Apparently, my relationship with my future husband wasn't very good. Strangely enough, that made me breathe a little easier. Momo's crying habit had probably come from his bargain bin father. One little crybaby was already exhausting enough. If I had to deal with a grown one too, a shudder ran through me. I couldn't even imagine it. That would be a disaster. Momo continued earnestly explaining that he had just answered a video call from a strange uncle. He emphasized the word strange very heavily. Clearly, he wanted to establish boundaries. I didn't think much of it. I merely assumed that my son had inherited my instincts and was naturally incompatible with Louis Brown. Then I felt a soft tug on the hem of my shirt. Momo's mouth turned downward. Tears began gathering in his eyes again. "Mommy, did Momo do something wrong? Why did Mommy stop paying attention to Momo when Momo mentioned the strange uncle?" My scalp instantly tingled. My entire brain became occupied with one question. How do I stop this little ancestor from crying again? What I didn't know was that while Momo buried his face against my shoulder, he became even more determined not to acknowledge his father. I looked back through my chat with Louis. Since I had no intention of forcing him to do something he didn't want to do, I decisively rejected his offer to pick me up. Louis must have been thrilled. The typing indicator remained on the screen for a very long time. "That's great. I'm finally free." "Fine. I won't pick you up. You think I care?" A while later. "Why won't you let me pick you up?" I ignored him. Holding Momo's little hand, I pushed open the private room door at the restaurant. The entire room instantly went silent. Kiki already knew, so she reacted first. She crouched in front of Momo and softened her voice dramatically. "Come here, baby. Let Auntie Kiki hold you." I was just about to explain that Momo had some separation anxiety, but Momo frowned, looked reluctantly at me, then hesitantly leaned into Kiki's arms. One little hand remained tightly wrapped around my sleeve. As if he were terrified I might leave him. Kiki immediately wore the biggest auntie smile imaginable. "Ah, so Momo is Mommy's little bodyguard. If you don't want to leave her that badly, why are you letting Auntie hold you?" Momo answered very seriously. "Because Mommy likes Auntie Kiki, and I am a polite baby." Kiki nearly died from cuteness. "Stella, of course he's your son. He's way too lovable." Only then did everyone else in the room recover their voices. "Stella, you hid this pretty well." "I wanted to say it earlier. That kid really does look exactly like you." Everyone except one person. Louis Brown was sitting in the corner with an extremely dark expression. Our eyes unexpectedly met. I was just about to pretend nothing had happened and look away when he spoke coldly. Stella Campbell. Where is he? Why didn't you bring him too? What? Is he too embarrassing to show his face? I immediately covered Momo's ears and frowned. Louis Brown. Shut up. Louis stared at my face. Then at Momo's, which looked almost identical. After a long silence, it was as if all the air suddenly left him. He reached out and grabbed my wrist. Then come outside with me. The night breeze on the terrace was chilly. I pulled my wrist free from Louis's hand. I honestly didn't understand why he was so worked up. But Momo's origins were impossible to explain. So I had no choice but to shut the entire conversation down with one sentence. You and I have nothing to talk about. Momo is my child. Mine alone. Louis's fingers curled slightly. His eyes were completely red. Against the endless darkness of the night, it was almost hard to see. Maybe I was imagining things. Fine. I won't ask. I was sticking my nose where it didn't belong. Still, the miserable downward curve of his mouth looked strangely familiar. I couldn't place it. For a second, I even felt like imitating that nosy reaction meme and leaning forward. No way. Are you actually crying? All that had happened was that I had overtaken him on the highway of life. Did he really have to be this angry about losing? Come to think of it, I had never understood why Louis hated me so much. When we were kids, I wanted a cat. My mother was allergic to cat fur, so I couldn't have one. The very next day, Louis bought the kitten I had wanted. Then he smugly told me that whenever I missed the cat, I could come to his house and see it. Afterward, he constantly sent me updates. Look, the kitten learned to do this. Look, it learned to jump backward. Look, it can roll over now. I blocked him multiple times out of pure rage. Later, I casually mentioned that I was thinking about getting into fitness. Suddenly, Louis began flooding social media with pictures of his muscles. The most disgusting part? Kiki said she couldn't see any of those posts. They had been made visible only to me. Completely targeted harassment. But now, I had finally won a round. The satisfaction practically made my scalp tingle. Still, as a decent human being, I decided to comfort him with the condescending generosity of a victor. Don't worry. Whoever Momo's father is, there's absolutely no chance it's you. See? Louis was so happy that his shoulders were shaking. I looked at him resentfully. Suddenly, I regretted comforting him. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I couldn't breathe. My chest felt crushed. I looked down. Apparently, one of Momo's ninja kicks had landed squarely on my chest while he slept. Mochi the cat sat beside him, elegantly licking one paw. I forced out a miserable smile. Wonderful. I used to wake up because a cat was sitting on me. Now it was my son. Cats really were such socially intelligent creatures. Respectful toward the elderly, gentle with children, and perfectly happy to bully everyone in between. I buried my face in Mochi's belly and aggressively inhaled cat for a while before dragging myself out of bed. It was only 7:30. I ate a simple breakfast. Seven was already waiting by the door with his leash in his mouth, his giant golden tail wagging hopefully. Out of habit, I nearly took him outside for my morning run. Then I abruptly remembered. I was now a woman with a child at home. I had no choice but to dig through my contacts until I found the college dog walker Kiki had recommended ages ago. Conveniently, he had just finished another job nearby. He arrived in a simple athletic tank top, wearing a bright, easy smile. Sorry to keep you waiting. I shook my head. After making sure Seven liked him, I gave him a few quick instructions. I was just about to close the door when I felt something tug on my shirt. Momo stood there rubbing his eyes, still half asleep. His brain clearly hadn't fully booted up, but his mouth had. Mommy, did you and Daddy make up? I followed his gaze. Only then did I notice that the neighbor across the hall, whom I had somehow never seen before, had opened his door. Louis Brown stood there with his jaw clenched. The second he heard the word Daddy, his sharp gaze landed on the college guy standing in front of me. He gave a cold laugh. Stella Campbell, your taste is terrible. After throwing that furious sentence at me, Louis slammed his door shut. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Clearly, he had misunderstood something. But there was no real reason to explain. As for the possibility of Louis being Momo's father, please. He didn't look like the crying type. My assistant had already screened several potential nannies for me. I scheduled interviews at home one by one. By the end of the afternoon, I was exhausted. I genuinely did not understand what was going through these men's heads. Every single one of them showed up dressed like they were auditioning for a dating show. Instead of playing with Momo, they wore expensive cologne, styled their hair within an inch of its life, and dressed far too well for a childcare interview. One guy even tried bribing Momo with candy to call him daddy. I judged every single one of them mercilessly. Strangely, every time I walked one of them out, I ran into Louis. Sometimes he was taking out the trash. Sometimes he was going downstairs for a package. For some reason, he always happened to be riding the elevator at the exact same time as them. And every time he came back upstairs, something about him had changed. His cologne became much lighter. His blonde hair mysteriously became dark. His earrings, rings, and jewelry vanished. Eventually, he was wearing nothing more than a plain athletic tank top. For some reason, much easier on the eyes. I casually asked him, "Do you seriously have that much trash to throw away?" Louis froze on the spot. Then he answered vaguely, "It's convenient. Maybe I'm just naturally domestic." I didn't understand how those two things were related. Louis, however, became more enthusiastic the longer he talked. Every time we have a family gathering, all the little kids stick to me. People say children like me because I have good energy. What do you think? He looked at me expectantly. I had absolutely no idea why he had suddenly brought this up. After several confused seconds, I gave him a thumbs up. "Oh. Wow. So you're really good at that." Louis's entire face changed instantly. His mouth turned down. "Stella Campbell, I hate that you're such a blockhead." A blockhead? At least blocks were sturdy. I still hadn't found a suitable nanny. But I wasn't in a hurry. We had run out of groceries, so I took Momo to the supermarket. Unexpectedly, we ran into the college guy who had been walking 7. He rented an apartment in the same complex. Since we were going the same way, I gave him a ride home. Apparently, someone who was popular with dogs was also popular with children. Momo quickly became friends with him. The two of them played a finger-catching game in the back seat and laughed the whole way. But little kids only had so much energy. By the time we got home, Momo had already fallen asleep curled up in the college guy's arms. I found the sight amusing. Carefully, I tried to take him. Then I realized that Momo had one fist tangled stubbornly in the guy's shirt. There was nothing I could do. I asked him to help carry Momo upstairs. The moment the elevator doors opened, however, we ran straight into Louis. He was standing outside his apartment, staring so hard at my front door that it looked like he was trying to burn a hole through it. The moment he heard the elevator, his entire expression brightened visibly, like some giant dog that had been waiting all day for its owner to come home. Then he saw the college guy carrying Momo while walking beside me. Within 1 second, Louis's eyes turned red. The way he looked at me made me feel like some terrible cheating wife. He walked straight past me and stopped in front of the other man. His tone remained controlled and polite. "Thanks for carrying him. I'll take him." Something about his presence made the college guy instinctively hesitate. He glanced at me awkwardly. I was just about to smooth things over when Momo woke up. His eyes blinked sleepily. He looked around. Then, naturally and affectionately, he stretched both arms toward Louis. "Daddy, hold me." Momo guiltily buried his little face in Louis's chest. The moment my front door closed behind us, he kicked his legs. He wanted down. "Uncle, I got the wrong person." Louis said nothing. The second Momo's feet touched the floor, he sprinted into my bedroom. The living room was left with only Louis and me. For some reason, things suddenly felt awkward. I was about to ask if he wanted something to drink when Louis spoke ominously. "Do I look like him?" "What?" Louis raised his voice, injecting an impressive amount of personal emotion into every word. "Do I look like that useless, pathetic excuse for a father who has less responsibility than literally every other man on earth?" I gave 2 awkward laughs. He probably wouldn't believe this, but I didn't know what Momo's father looked like either. Still, Louis had used so many negative adjectives. So I answered with great uncertainty. "Probably not." "Then just use me instead." I stared at him. What? I said. Louis lifted his face. Only then did I realize that at some point, he had started crying. Oddly enough, it didn't make him look unattractive. The corners of his eyes and the tip of his nose were flushed pink. His tears glittered under the light. That wounded expression looked exactly like Momo's. Like an offended rabbit. Cute to look at. Probably capable of kicking the hell out of you. I woke up at 3:33 this morning. My battery was at 33%. And it's Wednesday. My brain stalled. Oh. Okay. So. Louis glared at me angrily. His voice was thick with congestion from crying. I'm saying everything is screaming 3. I can be the third person. The other man. Can you at least consider me? I watched Louis moving around my kitchen. The entire situation felt surreal. Had I somehow given birth to a tiny incubus? Even Louis Brown, a man who supposedly hated me, was now practically volunteering to become Momo's father. My cooking skills were limited. I had originally planned to make simple pasta for dinner. Louis apparently found that unacceptable. He upgraded the menu immediately. Smoked brisket. Stuffed turkey roulade. If we'd had more time, I was fairly certain he would have continued showing off. Now even Momo was holding his stomach with a serious expression and warning it. You can growl again later. You're a good tummy. Meanwhile, I was openly swallowing saliva. Compared with Louis's food, mine had basically forfeited appearance, smell, and taste before even entering the competition. Momo usually stopped eating the moment his stomach showed the slightest roundness. Tonight, he finished an entire huge bowl. That was when I finally realized. My child had never actually been easy to feed. He had simply been eating my cooking because survival instincts left him no other choice. Momo noticed the guilt in my eyes. He immediately scooted over to comfort me. Mommy, don't be sad. In Momo's heart, Mommy's food is still the most delicious food in the whole world. I nearly laughed. But I deliberately looked disappointed to tease him. Really? But you never eat this much when Mommy cooks. That's because I was extra hungry today. And... Momo's face turned red from panic. Desperate, he looked at Louis for help. Louis stared at the little face that looked almost exactly like the woman he had apparently been obsessing over his entire life. His heart nearly exploded from cuteness. Unable to resist those enormous eyes, he lowered his gaze toward his plate in a pathetic attempt to hide his reaction. His blinking rate noticeably increased. Good food is just different. You only need 2 bites to feel full. Momo's eyes immediately lit up. Yes. That's exactly what I meant. Uncle, you're like a bug in my stomach. Louis paused. Mind reader. Momo and Louis got along unexpectedly well. Except for the first few nights, when Momo insisted on sleeping with me, he eventually began sleeping alone in the guest room. When I asked why, Momo looked extremely serious. Uncle said kids who still sleep with grown-ups when they're this big won't grow tall. And if Momo doesn't grow tall, Momo won't be able to protect Mommy. He looked exactly like a tiny victim who had swallowed Louis's nonsense whole. One night, Louis sat beside Momo's bed reading him a bedtime story. Only one warm bedside lamp was on. Its soft golden light washed across Louis's profile, making his features look unusually gentle. I stared a little too long. It wasn't until Momo suddenly spoke that I realized I had somehow started smiling. Uncle, if you aren't a person in your next life, what do you want to be? Louis answered immediately. A giant golden retriever named Seven. If suspicious strangers come near the house, I'll bite them. I raised an eyebrow and glanced at the actual Seven, who was dozing beside Momo's bed. Did he know someone was planning to steal his job in the next life? Momo frowned thoughtfully for several seconds. Then I want to be an elephant. Why? Momo smiled sweetly. Because elephants make really big poop. Uncle, in our next life, I'll feed you the best part so you never go hungry. What an incredibly flavorful conversation. And Momo's eyes were completely sincere. Louis's throat visibly tightened. When he heard me failing to suppress my laughter, he turned and gave me an aggrieved look. Thank you so much. Momo smiled brightly. You're welcome. Momo eventually fell asleep. The atmosphere between Louis and me immediately became quiet again. Truthfully, I had no experience peacefully coexisting with Louis Brown. I watched him silently gather Momo's dirty clothes and head toward the laundry room. I quickly stopped him. "I can wash those." Louis executed a smooth little twist and dodged me. "I only think Momo is cute, and I want to be his dad. This has absolutely nothing to do with you, so don't get the wrong idea." "Oh. I know." The corner of Louis's mouth dropped by approximately 1 pixel. His puffed-up profile somehow looked a little like Momo's. I couldn't resist. I reached out and poked his cheek. Louis's hands stopped moving. He turned toward me. His eyes had gone slightly red again. His long dark lashes trembled. "Don't worry. I'm not trying to replace Momo's biological father. If you don't believe me, I can even take Momo's last name." I opened my mouth, then asked sincerely, "But Momo has my last name." "Louis, do you want to call me Mommy too?" Unexpectedly, Louis turned bright red. Instead of exploding like usual, he merely glared at me. There was absolutely no intimidation behind it. If anything, he looked almost coy. "I'm not that casual. Taking my wife's last name is something I'd only do after we officially got together." I didn't hear the second half clearly. When I asked Louis to repeat it, he refused. My curiosity immediately took over. Since his hands were busy with laundry and he couldn't fight back, I started poking his waist over and over like an annoying cat. Louis became redder and redder. But he didn't move away. Only his stomach and waist grew increasingly tense. After watching Louis and Momo play together for several days, I finally felt comfortable returning to the office. I had originally installed cameras around the house. Now they seemed completely unnecessary. Louis behaved exactly like an overexcited stay-at-home dad who had just discovered the concept of showing off his child. He wanted to update me on every single thing Momo did. In our 3-person group chat, Louis sent another series of photos. Momo from the front. Cute. Momo from the side. Cute. Momo from behind. Cute. Then there was a video. Momo was sitting on Louis's back while Louis casually did push-ups beneath him. The muscles in his arms flexed with every repetition. His breathing remained perfectly steady. For some reason, watching it made my face grow warm. Momo's little voice came through the video. "Uncle, say hi to Mommy." Louis deliberately teased him. His voice was low and slightly rough from exercising. "Hi, Mommy. You've worked hard today. Remember to come home early." Why did that sound so inappropriate? Momo instantly exploded. "That's my mommy. You're not allowed to call her that." At lunch, Louis reported what Momo had eaten. Then he demanded a picture of my lunch. Whenever I got busy at work, I had a habit of forgetting meals. Sometimes, when I felt guilty enough, I'd survive on coffee and a sad piece of bread. Louis condemned this behavior harshly. Eventually, he started waking up early to pack lunch for me. I felt guilty. I told him he didn't need to take care of me. Louis immediately shut me down. "You're overthinking it. I couldn't care less what you eat. Parents are a child's role models. I just don't want Momo learning your terrible habits." I sat there feeling touched for an embarrassingly long time. Then I sincerely typed, "Louis Brown, you're such a good person." Immediately, Momo sent a voice message. "Mommy, Uncle is not a good person. Uncle is a big bad guy." I stared at the phone in confusion. Then Louis explained weakly. His reading lesson today had the phrase, "Only the good die young. Troublemakers live forever." I laughed so hard my hands shook. I accidentally tapped Louis's profile picture. That was when I noticed he had changed it at some point. It matched the illustrated profile pictures Momo and I used. Same style. Same obvious hand-drawn look. Louis had aggressively inserted himself into our mother and son set. Momo was napping in his room. Louis hummed while cleaning the living room. What had once been a minimalist apartment was now full of signs that people actually lived there. When one of his friends called, Louis happened to be admiring the slippers on his feet with a ridiculous amount of satisfaction. They matched Momo's. Parent and child slippers. When Stella Campbell crossed his mind, the tips of his ears turned red. Technically, they matched hers too. So they could also count as couple slippers. His friend laughed over the phone. "Louis, what the hell happened to you, man? You enjoying your surprise promotion to fatherhood?" Louis immediately denied it. You don't understand. This is strategy. I'm infiltrating enemy territory. Once Stella gets used to having me around, I'll suddenly withdraw. She'll regret everything and beg me to come back. Look, she's at work right now. This entire house is my kingdom. His friend snorted. Absolutely. You're completely free. You can mop whenever you want. Cook whenever you want. Do laundry whenever you want. What independence? Then he added sarcastically, you don't actually want to be that kid's dad. Louis, you're basically getting to raise your crush from childhood all over again through her miniature clone. You must be having the time of your life. Proud of you, buddy. You were born to be a simp. Cold face, domestic service. Keep it up. I support you emotionally. May you lose your money, lose your dignity, and still fail to get the girl. Louis completely missed the insult. He coughed awkwardly, then spoke with suspicious shyness. I'm not at the point where I'm washing her underwear or anything. A pause. Should I work harder? His friend audibly took a deep breath. You sound disappointed. Louis was just about to defend himself when his friend gave a cold laugh. Doesn't matter. You're out of chances anyway. While you've been playing exhausted house husband at home, someone else already moved in. Well, technically, he isn't moving in. He might be the rightful guy coming back. Louis immediately went silent. You didn't know. Stella had an older student in college who recently came back from overseas. I heard they worked on a project together. When he moved abroad, Stella personally drove him to the airport. Oh, right. Apparently his name is Morris Tyrell. Funny coincidence. I heard Momo's full name is Morris Campbell. That's a pretty romantic naming choice, isn't it? His friend paused dramatically. Tell me, Louis. You think he might be the kid's actual father? I had just finished reviewing a document when several new messages appeared in the group chat. Momo's dad had shared several articles. Staying emotionally entangled with an ex is one of the worst things you can do to a child. Children learn what they see. Don't raise a child in a loveless relationship. Blood isn't what creates family. Presence does. I stared at the messages with question marks practically floating over my head. I was just about to ask whether Louis's account had been hacked when my secretary knocked. Morris Tyrell had arrived. He had recently developed a new patent I was very interested in. By the time I finally looked up from our conversation, it was already dinner time. Morris raised an eyebrow. Want to grab dinner? I instinctively reached for my phone. I was about to tell Louis that I wouldn't be home for dinner. Morris noticed. He looked at me as though he had discovered something fascinating. When are you going to introduce me? I'm curious. Who's impressive enough to make a block of wood like you finally bloom? I was about to explain. Someone knocked on the office door. Louis Brown marched in like he was heading into battle. He was holding Momo in his arms as if the child was some sort of strategic nuclear weapon. His posture was perfect. His confidence magnificent. He gave Morris Tyrell one dismissive glance, then turned toward me. His expression instantly transformed into gentle sweetness. Momo missed Mommy. He kept asking me to bring him to pick you up from work. Then he glanced at Morris. Did I interrupt something? The atmosphere at home was weird. Louis cooked 3 dishes and a soup with a cold expression. With that same cold expression, he carefully removed every fishbone and peeled all the shrimp before placing them neatly into Momo's bowl. Then, still wearing that cold expression, he changed Momo out of his dirty clothes and washed them. He had been acting like this ever since Momo asked Morris Tyrell whether he was his new daddy. Louis looked as though the entire world had personally betrayed him. Momo and I whispered to each other. Is he mad at us? Momo looked completely calm. His tone contained the wisdom of someone who had lived through this before. He'll be fine after he cries. Mommy, don't pay attention to him. The more you pay attention, the worse he gets. I still felt that ignoring him was wrong. So I went toward the laundry room to test the waters. Then I saw Louis standing there with a completely cold face, while crying, and washing my underwear. My scalp tingled instantly. Louis, however, acted perfectly natural. In fact, when I tried to stop him, He reacted like an aggressive dog whose food had just been stolen. What? Now everything I do annoys you. I knew it. The old flame comes back and suddenly you don't even remember the new guy. Now you're policing whether I'm allowed to wash your underwear. What's next? Are you going to take away my right to sleep on the couch, cook, and look after Momo too? Listen to yourself. Does any of this sound normal? I was rendered speechless. For one moment, I genuinely regretted ignoring Momo's advice. Unfortunately, Louis saw my silence and began crying even harder. Now you don't even want to talk to me. I don't even have an official relationship status, and I'm already being emotionally neglected. Why is my life so miserable? His eyes were soaked. His lips trembled so badly he could barely close them. Louis Brown did not suffer quietly when he felt wronged. He did not argue. He simply cried for the entire world to see. But he looked very pretty when he cried. For reasons I couldn't explain, I did exactly what I did whenever Momo cried. I pulled Louis against me. My hand stroked the back of his neck again and again. It's my fault. Don't cry anymore, okay? If your eyes get swollen, you won't look pretty. Louis calmed down considerably. His tears soaked the side of my neck. He grumbled unhappily. Who comforts people like that? I'm this upset, and you're still worried about whether I look good. And yet, it clearly worked. He finally stopped crying. The whole ridiculous scene ended when Momo suddenly charged in. He squeezed himself between Louis and me and forcibly separated us. I can cry too. I want Mommy to hold me too. And just like that, he cried. My head started hurting. My worst fear had come true. Comfort the big one. Then comfort the little one. At this point, I seriously suspected Momo's love of crying had come directly from his bargain bin biological father. Momo buried himself in my arms and refused to leave. Meanwhile, Louis kept rubbing the same tiny piece of fabric over and over while looking at me with red-rimmed eyes. His expression was shy, expectant, almost coy. Caught between them, I abruptly came to my senses. Only then did I process what I had just done with Louis. Had I lost my mind? This was awkward. It took me ages to organize my thoughts. You should take a few days off. You've been revolving around Momo non-stop. That kind of pressure can blur boundaries. I assumed Louis would be relieved, that his mood would finally improve. Instead, his lips began trembling again. His voice cracked. The entire world seemed to collapse around him. You're kicking me out. My scalp tingled. I immediately tried to explain, but he interrupted furiously. Fine. I'll leave. Don't think I can't live without you. I'm finally free. I've wanted to leave for ages. He said all of this while standing completely still. Had doing housework somehow given him repetitive behavior syndrome? After thinking about it, I grabbed his hand and physically escorted him to his own apartment. You really need some rest. Don't worry about Momo. I'll take care of him for the next few days. The door closed mercilessly in his face. Louis instinctively sniffed his damp palm. It smelled nice. His eyes instantly began watering again. Why should he leave just because Stella Campbell told him to? Who was that other guy anyway? Could he wash Stella's clothes as clean as Louis did? And what kind of person kicked him out before he had even finished the laundry? Stella Campbell's hands were meant for signing contracts. How could she possibly be expected to do physical labor like that? For the next several days, Louis Brown monitored the hallway through his video doorbell like a surveillance officer. Stella Campbell ordered delivery 3 times. The delivery drivers from those upscale restaurants were dressed way too nicely. She smiled at them twice. The college dog walker came by twice a day. One time, he even stayed inside for quite a while. And that ungrateful little Momo had curled up against someone else when the guy finally left. Not one trace of missing Louis. Louis paced his apartment restlessly. For approximately the 101st time, he regretted not installing cameras inside Stella's home. Finally, he called the only married friend he had. His friend immediately hit him with several soul-searching questions. After she kicked you out, did you record yourself crying and send it to her for sympathy? No. Did you shamelessly refuse to leave and demand that she take responsibility for you? No. Did you post some pathetic abandoned husband status visible only to her, threatening to cry yourself blind if she dared find another man? No. Did you use missing the kid as an excuse to video call her 3 times a day? Louis's face stiffened. He answered with painful honesty. No. After she rejected me, I just went somewhere else and cried. His friend laughed coldly. Oh. Then you could cry yourself completely blind and you still wouldn't make the waiting list for husband number 2. Playing it cool is obsolete, man. Thin-skinned guys stay single. Shameless guys get wives. Right now. Immediately. Find your best angle and take a crying selfie. Send it to her and act pitiful. After Momo and I finished fighting over the last pieces of pizza, we fell into silence. Momo wrapped his arms around my neck. Mommy, when is Uncle coming back? I laughed. What? You miss him now? What happened to turning your butt toward him and ignoring him? Momo blinked innocently. I don't miss Uncle. Momo's tummy misses him. I struggled not to laugh. His stomach really had been growling. Fair enough. Come to think of it, I had been checking my phone without thinking for the past few days. But Louis seemed to be having fun. His latest social media post was tagged in the Maldives. I thought about it and decided not to bother him. I was considering hiring a private chef when a message suddenly appeared in our group chat. Momo's dad posted a mirror selfie. His face looked thinner. His eyelids were red. A trail of tears ran down his cheek like a streak of highlighter. He looked offensively beautiful. My eyes won't stop watering. I don't know what to do. Can you really bear to treat me like this? Angry face. Momo leaned over to look. He frowned. Uncle isn't wearing clothes. Shame. Only then did I notice Louis's bare upper body. Oh, great. Apparently, his tears were more eye-catching to me than his naked chest. The moment I realized I was actually looking at Louis Brown as an attractive man, my body suddenly felt too warm. Pretending the photograph had not affected me at all, I ignored the obvious issue and replied to the least important part. What do the greater than and less than signs mean? Louis answered immediately. I'm trying to look cute for you. Not long afterward, Louis showed up at my door looking teary. The first thing he did after entering was sniff around like an enormous dog checking whether another animal had invaded its territory. Then, with swollen eyes, he quietly cleaned the entire apartment. If Momo and I hadn't told him we had already eaten, he probably would have gone straight into the kitchen too. That earned us an extremely wounded look. Afterward, Louis acted as though nothing had happened. As usual, he read Momo a bedtime story and put him to sleep. But the moment Momo's bedroom door closed, Louis stared directly at me with red eyes. I sighed. I pressed my fingertips gently beneath his eyes. How do you even have this many tears? Doesn't it hurt when your eyes get this swollen? Louis covered the back of my hand so I couldn't pull away. Then he turned his head. He buried his face in my palm. His warm breath brushed against my wrist when he spoke. It tickled. If you rub them for me, they won't hurt. My wrist trembled. That was when I suddenly remembered. Louis and Kiki Brown were twins. And both of them were 1 year younger than me. His long, soft lashes brushed against my palm. Louis behaved like someone who had secretly completed an advanced degree in seduction while he was gone. I couldn't handle it. My brain went blank. Then a revelation suddenly struck me. Louis, are you in love with me? Louis laughed in disbelief. I have practically thrown myself at you trying to become your kid's father. I have spent every waking moment trying to marry into the Campbell family. And you're asking whether I like you. He clicked his tongue, then muttered, No, I don't like you. Happy? Oh. I nodded. Good. Stella Campbell. Louis immediately panicked. He lifted his head and saw the laughter in my eyes. His ears turned bright red. Then he buried his face in the crook of my neck and whined like a giant dog. Is teasing me really that fun? I don't care anymore. It's best if you like me. But even if you hate me, that works too. If you hate me, I'll hate myself with you. See? We're clearly made for each other. After that day, Louis became unbelievably clingy. His favorite thing was waiting until Momo fell asleep and then asking me for rewards. I walked 7 twice today. I kissed his forehead. The corner of Louis's mouth rose by approximately 1 pixel. I also took Mochi to the groomer and got his vaccines. I kissed the corner of his eye. Momo said my cooking was really good. And at his checkup today, the pediatrician said I've been taking excellent care of him. I kissed his cheek. And earlier, I gave you a massage, and you said I was really good at it. I sighed helplessly. I genuinely didn't know where he found this much energy. I kissed the corner of his mouth. Still not what he wanted. Louis pouted. He looked at me pitifully. Please. The student had surpassed the teacher. By now, he had become an expert at using tears to make me soften. A little teasing was fun. Tease him too much, however, and 1 kiss wouldn't be enough to fix it. I surrendered. I leaned in and kissed him properly. He immediately took control. Louis's large hand locked firmly around the back of my head. His kiss was hot and intense. Just like him. Greedy. Impatient. Trying to claim every inch of territory as if he needed to leave proof that it belonged to him. When we finally paused, Louis brushed the tip of his nose repeatedly against the shell of my ear. Reluctant to pull away. You smell so good. The second he felt my breathing steady, his eyes turned hazy. He leaned in again. Then Momo's voice suddenly interrupted us. He was standing in the doorway with enormous innocent eyes. Uncle. Does Momo smell good too? News that Louis Brown and I were dating spread through our social circle almost immediately. One night, Louis received another phone call. He went outside to answer it with an annoyed expression. Not long afterward, he returned to bed and wrapped himself around me. Half asleep, I asked. Who was that? Louis gently patted my back. His voice was completely casual. Nothing important. Just a menopausal middle-aged couple calling to yell at me. The next morning, I called Kiki. That was when I realized Louis had been talking about his own parents. My brother almost gave Mom and Dad a heart attack last night. They asked when he was finally bringing you home so everyone could pick a wedding date. They told him to stop wandering around outside like some stray dog with no official status. And what did he say? He told them to get the paperwork ready because he plans to take your last name. He said becoming Mr. Campbell would solve the problem at the source. Then nobody could embarrass the Brown family by laughing at him anymore. I stared at my phone. Your parents accepted this that quickly. Kiki was clearly trying not to laugh. You have no idea what my brother was like at home. He was basically a demon. Mom and Dad were already losing their minds because he showed zero interest in dating. And then he started doing weird stuff. At one point, he decided a rose in our backyard was his wife. When the rose wilted, he threw a fit and said he wanted to die with it. I nearly choked. Mom and Dad were so angry they couldn't sleep. Louis stayed completely calm. He ordered them both giant cold brews and said, "Now you really won't be able to sleep." Kiki burst out laughing. Forget accepting you. When they found out he was actually dating a real human woman, they almost cried tears of joy while hugging the dead rosebush. I was still quietly laughing over Louis's humiliating childhood stories when I turned around. I nearly jumped. He had somehow appeared behind me without making a sound. He stood there like some kind of ghost. Baby. Who are you talking to? I instinctively ended the call. Ever since I had met Morris Tyrell, Louis had become especially sensitive. Apparently, being willing to play the other man wasn't enough. He was also absurdly dedicated to the position. He remained constantly vigilant for the sudden appearance of another one of Momo's Schrödinger fathers. I had suffered greatly, so I decided to strike first. Talking to her does not mean I don't love you. It doesn't mean I'm mad at you. It doesn't mean I think you're too controlling. And it definitely doesn't mean I'm embarrassed to be seen with you. I finished the disclaimer in one breath. I was just about to relax when Louis spoke darkly. I haven't said anything. I haven't done anything. And you're already explaining this much. So in your heart, you really do think I'm some insecure, jealous side piece who doesn't belong in polite society. I couldn't have invented a better accusation if I tried. My head hurt. I surrendered. I was talking to Kiki. We were talking about your parents. The moment I finished, Louis pulled me into his arms. His voice became muffled. Don't feel pressured. I'll handle everything. I turned my head and kissed the corner of his mouth. Louis, we're going to get married. Let's choose a day and go see your parents, okay? The date was settled very quickly. After that, Louis threw himself into wedding planning with terrifying energy. At this point, sleep seemed like the only biological function he hadn't yet evolved beyond. One day, while we were helping Momo try on a custom little suit, he quietly leaned toward me. Mommy, is the game where I pretend not to know Daddy over now? Can I call Uncle Daddy again? I froze. That night, I secretly collected hairs from both Momo and Louis. The paternity test came back. Probability of paternity, greater than 99.99%. Momo had been telling the truth. That evening, Louis finished Momo's bedtime story as usual. He kissed his forehead. Momo, good night. Momo obediently rubbed his little cheek against Louis's. Good night, Daddy. Louis's expression didn't change, except his eyes became even softer. Nothing else seemed unusual. Then we closed the bedroom door. Immediately, Louis buried his face in my neck and started sobbing. Baby, did you hear that? Momo called me Daddy. I sighed helplessly. You are Momo's daddy. Louis completely misunderstood me. Instead of processing the obvious meaning, he somehow became even more emotional. I know. That means he trusts me. Don't worry. I already scheduled a vasectomy for the day after tomorrow. Momo will be my only child. I'll never betray his trust. I stared at him, then silently shoved the paternity report into his hands. I explained exactly how Momo had appeared beside me. Only then did Louis finally understand. His voice began trembling. I knew it. The first moment I saw Momo, I felt like the universe was giving me a sign. I kept thinking, how could some bastard possibly slip past me after all these years of guarding every angle? And now I find out. The bastard was me. His tears immediately started again. In his next life, my son was even planning to become an elephant and feed me elephant poop so I wouldn't starve. What a filial child. And I couldn't even recognize my own son. I'm a terrible father. Then he cried harder. And I'm a terrible husband too. I made you live like a single mom for so long. Baby, hit me. It had actually only been a few days. I wanted to laugh. But I also felt sorry for him. So I held him and comforted him for a very long time. We had gone to sleep late. By the time I woke up, afternoon sunlight was already pouring through the living room windows, spilling across the carpet where father and son were sitting together. Louis had enormous dark circles beneath his eyes. He followed Momo around with a ridiculous grin. Sweetheart, can you tell Daddy one more time how Mommy chose Daddy out of millions and millions of men? Momo was trying to play with his toys. Louis had clearly annoyed him beyond his limit. Momo smacked one little hand directly over Louis's mouth, then blinked his huge innocent eyes. Daddy, there was a mosquito on your mouth. Without warning, Louis burst into tears. This is it. This is exactly how I used to treat my dad when I was little. Momo disappeared one afternoon, just as suddenly as he had appeared. We asked everyone around us. No one remembered him. No one. Except Louis and me. Louis held his phone tightly. His eyes were red. His breathing was unsteady. Mom, think carefully. Last month you bought Momo that huge teddy bear that was almost the same size as him. You seriously don't remember? My own eyes were unfocused. Then I noticed the birthday hat lying on the couch. A few months ago, I had turned 26. Momo had been especially clingy around that time. A vague realization slowly formed. I took Louis's hand. Carefully, I placed it against my stomach. Louis. Momo told me. I gave birth to him when I was 27. On the other end of the phone, Louis's mother was still completely confused. Morris Campbell. Who are you talking about? Louis tightened his hand around mine. He pressed his forehead against mine. His voice was quiet but certain. My future son. Morris Campbell. Momo felt like he had been asleep for a very, very long time. When he finally woke up, he instinctively burrowed deeper into Mommy's arms. Stella Campbell immediately melted. She smiled and gently squeezed his little cheeks. Did Momo sleep well? Momo nodded enthusiastically. Ahem. Louis Brown, unwilling to be left out, squeezed himself closer. He trapped Momo between the two of them. Momo stuck out his little butt and tried to shove his father away. He was immediately defeated. Louis pinched him easily. So, were Mommy and Daddy in your dream? Momo couldn't remember what he had dreamed about anymore. But that didn't stop him from lifting his little chin proudly. Yes. Mommy and Daddy love Momo very, very much. The sentimental atmosphere lasted approximately 2 seconds. Then Momo started bickering with his childish father again. He was still angry about the previous day. Mother's Day. Daddy had not given Mommy a present. Momo confronted him righteously. Daddy, where's your gift? Don't pretend. I heard you calling my mommy Mommy too. For once, even Louis Brown's legendary shamelessness failed him. He had absolutely no defense. He could only turn toward his wife with a pitiful look, begging for help. Don't look at her. Stella Campbell covered her face awkwardly, fighting desperately not to burst out laughing. Warm morning sunlight spilled over the three of them. And they would stay together. Happy. For a very, very long time. The end. Thanks for stopping by. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any new videos.